Next, we've got the first of the poster sessions feeding back from the Authoring a Future Room with Dave Blakely of IDEO on the other soapbox.
Thank you, Avery. Well, we had a good, vigorous discussion about the topic. For those of you that didn't drop by the booth, the big idea here is, as so often happens with technology, well, we can do certain things with it, but should we? And here's the question. If you think of the way most mobile phones behave these days, sophisticated as they are, as fundamentally reactive objects, right? Siri is absolutely incredible, but what does Siri do? Siri responds when I ask Siri a question, okay? Right now, mobile devices can be greatly customized with software downloads, but fundamentally, you tell them what to do, you tell them when you want them to do it, and they do it. They're objects. And something that's increasingly possible these days is for mobile devices to be proactive, intelligent agents. So the question I tossed out to all the people that came by was, how many decisions do you want your mobile device making for you? Do you want your mobile device to be an agent for your life? And what are the limits of agency? When is it smart? When is it sensible? When is it cool? And when is it just annoying and plain creepy? Let me just share some of the feedback that I got. And the first thing I want to say is, I hope that all the people that came to my booth and contributed ideas never decide to create their own company, because if so, I do not want to bid against you. You came up with some really, really good ideas. Some of the themes that were interesting across a lot of the ideas that came up is there's definitely an underserved appetite for what I would call personalized, authentic services that are both contextual and show up at the right time. And that was everything from personal and authentic recommendations around, say, health to what contractor should I use for the new home I just bought. There were a lot of ideas that touched on the fact that mobile devices, increasingly intelligent mobile devices coupled with cloud computing, is going to blur the line between producers and consumers. One of the interesting ideas that came up out of our discussion was, well, why should we even make a decision about whether the phone itself is going to be more proactive and make recommendations to me like, hey, you're about to miss the train, versus just respond when I ask it, are you going to miss the train? Why can't I set on each app for each major feature on my phone, why don't I have a sliding scale or something like that that allows me to set the level of proactive versus reactive behavior? There were a lot of ideas that came out for your phone in your pocket to be your resident expert. Some of the things that a small number of people can do that could possibly be built into algorithms, like there are some people in law enforcement that are brilliant face readers. That's some really interesting reading, by the way. Could your phone, with its sensitive microphone and its increasingly high-resolution video, be a face reading tool for you? And finally, there were a heck of a lot of ideas around quantified health. Here's the idea that I thought was the best one, just based on ideas that were very forward-thinking. Could Mariella please stand up? Oh, please don't tell me Mariella left. It's a little hard to read the name. Mariella Chloe or Chloe? Is that you? Oh, Marcella. That's an R. Well, yeah, we talked a little bit, but I didn't realize this was your idea. Congratulations. So Marcella essentially is gonna split the difference. She doesn't want phones to be dumb objects, and she doesn't want phones making decisions for her. What she wants is what I would imagine to be an artificial intelligence system, and this is a great aspirational idea, I thought. She wants a system that can help you visualize your thought processes, creating a mind map of your options and possibility, even if those are infinite. It's essentially a thought processor that allows you to visualize all of your options. So congratulations, let's give her a hand.
Thank you, Dave. Next, we've got Lucian Vattel from Game Desk on the other soapbox.
Hi, everybody. I'm CEO of Game Desk. We're a educational video game company. We build both high-tech and low-tech curriculum, and we just opened a school that is a daily use case for trying out our products and third-party products. And our question for an idea was to pick an educational topic that was important to you and go ahead and do a little exercise where you come up with a concept for a game idea, and the reward is that my team will actually go through a pre-development process and work and build a concept Bible, what we call a concept Bible, and a poster for the idea, and actually try to generate some effort around the idea. And so we started looking through all of them, and there were a lot of physics-based suggestions, a lot of science and physics-based suggestions. There were some looking at some energy-based modules, and those were really good. We also saw that there were some interesting posts on learning about learning, the process, actually having a game that teaches you the process of learning, metacognition, the ability to think about your own learning process. So that was in the top three. So the ones that we ended up picking was we picked one that we're going to do right away and put in the school next week. So we like to move fast. So Neil, he suggested actually taking pool and teaching physics, and we're going to build a curriculum tomorrow. I already sent an email out, and the entire team is going to build a curriculum and an interaction on Wednesday. So we'll send you a video, Neil, of your idea in action next week. So in terms of building a full game, there were 3 that picked a very similar idea, and it fits in sort of our strategy for next year for the types of products we want to roll out, and that is focusing on kids understanding the economy, which is a big topic right now for our society and especially for our country, and I think that our generation needs to start really thinking about their future in it. So we have an idea from Phil Lamoureux hi Phil, for building a SimCity-like game that addresses the economy. So we're going to do that. Plus, we have 2 fantastic ideas from Cindy Ramirez and Beth R. Beth, we don't know who you are other than R, which is to build entrepreneurial modules. So we're going to build a series of entrepreneurial modules where kids do their own startup and build their own companies and form their own boards and get their own stock options and find out how their companies work in a larger economy and build a sim wraparound to that. So congratulations, everybody, and thank you for your time and thank you for your submissions.
Thank you, Lucian. Next, we've got Saline SPL from Singularity University.
So for those who weren't here first thing in the morning, we kicked it off with a discussion with Dick Williams and myself bouncing back and forth, what is the nature of change? And something that's unique about us is that we focus on the fastest moving technologies and the potential impacts of those. And we're seeing a basket of technologies today, AI, robotics, medicine, neuroscience, computing, all in an exponential growth path. Aspects of those are doubling in their price performance anywhere from 18 to 30 months. And so we think about what are the impacts of those and how do we manage a future world when technology is moving so quickly. The question that we asked was, how does a regulatory framework of any kind keep pace as technology is accelerating away from us? And this is a pretty big structural issue because we've got privacy washing away in front of our eyes. The Fourth Amendment, which has decreed that information in the home, quote unquote, is protected under the Constitution, is essentially irrelevant because if you use web-based services of any kind, the courts have decreed that it's not in the home. And so with no public discourse at all, or very little, a pretty fundamental pillar of American society is washing away in front of our eyes. That's privacy. We've lost the whole digital music, digital rights battle, and how do we manage this? And at a more structural level, there was a great story in the MIT Tech Review that they found that if you take a high amp current and put it next to your head for 30 minutes, your learning retention doubles. Okay? And this is great, but you know, it's going to take like 10 years of long-term clinical trials to figure that what the long-term implications of that are. I would not recommend you try this at home or give this to your kids. But by the time we got around to regulating that device, it would be hopelessly out of date. That's one level of issue. And the second level is, as we get to personalized medicine, we know that Plavix today only works for about 75% of people. 25% of people who have the different type of gene. Plavix, the blood thinner, does not work, and you require a triple dose. And so we're getting to this point where your DNA analysis will determine what cocktail of medicines or dosages you get with drugs. And how do you do clinical trials when your sample size is 1? And fundamentally, that's a structural problem. We've never seen that before. And so we're going to have to navigate these. The question we asked was around that. We got a whole slew of discussion and interesting responses, anywhere from crowdsourcing it to radical transparency to game dynamics to get rid of all the regulations in the first place. That's the libertarian view there, etc. We've chosen the winner as Christopher and Sarah, if you guys can raise your hands over there. Okay, and the answer from their perspective, 1, regulation is a necessary evil, agree. Secondly, there is a linear relationship between the cost of regulation and the innovation. And by default, regulation always lags innovation anyway. The problem is the gap is increasing. Solution that they came up with, which we judged the most interesting, was A, deregulate everything possible to free up resources that's not critical. Force transparency in real time to democratize the process for as many areas as possible, and then reserve the research and the hardcore regulatory frameworks for where you need actual life-saving in other areas. For example, the FDA today is geared towards life-saving, not towards efficacy. And they're trying to flip that around, but that will be kind of a long-term process. So thank you for all the contributions. Fascinating discussion. We'll watch how this world plays out over the next few years in that. And congratulations to you both. You hacked the process, but we'll give you both a day at SU. So thank you.
Thank you, Saline. Next, we have Sir Allan Collins from Nairn Company on the soapbox stage right.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. This is like being at Speaker's Corner in London on here. I hope I can fire you with some political thinking. We set the question about what it would take to be successful going global in summary. And we did that because, as you know, Nairn & Co. is the perfect impetus to globalization. It's a pure globalizing company. It's a service provider that lets a company that wants to internationalize from, for example, this area, go to India, China, Europe, wherever it wants to, without risk, in the sense that Nair take care of all its back office functions for HR and accounting and so on and so forth as a holistic package. So that's where we were coming from in Nair, of which I'm the non-executive chairman. So we were very interested to know what it is that would make a company successful in going global. And there was a huge amount of interest and discussion around this on our stand, as there was from the other speakers. So I congratulate the organisers on having that interactive section. It was much better than just sort of freewheeling around. And we had lots of good suggestions. I think the thrust of the thinking was that collaboration is the word that sort of came out very frequently in the answers. Somebody was very keen on seeing combining skills much more than companies do at the moment. Some were very keen on social networking being the way forward. Some were keen on a culture of more open management and collaboration. Joining up the dots, I think, is how one person described it. People were very keen on a cross-disciplinary approach, a sort of cross-pollinization approach, and flatteringly said, like goes on in London, which makes it such a successful financial services sector. I couldn't resist that plug for the City of London, could I? You'll guess from the accent why I want to plug that. And then we had our colleague who's talking about need for social transformation, wrote a very nice essay about nature gets it right and society gets it wrong. So we need to be moving more in that direction. But then we tried to narrow it down to winners and losers. And the runners-up, we thought, was one idea about neutralization of time zones. If that could be done through introduction of communication systems, that makes everybody simultaneously present in the same time. It sounds a bit like Doctor Who, but if it worked, it would be good. The next runner-up was around getting the yin and yang of incentive and consequence right. And we thought that was a good answer as well. It was somebody being inclined to go to China, but the consequence for their intellectual property could be disastrous if they did. Sorry to drop these on the floor, I'll pick them up in a minute. We were very torn between two answers at the end. The runner-up was Letitia Britos. Is Letitia still here? Thanks, Letitia. You narrowly didn't win. Sorry to tell you that, but we'll give you all the chocolate that's left in the next room instead. Letitia said there is a huge untapped wealth of ingenuity in people who are not yet connected to the internet. How do we tap and leverage that pool? So what she was reminding us was that probably more than half the world's population are not on the internet. So people who want to go global need to bear that in mind. And I'm perhaps reluctant. I'll be savaged to death in Silicon Valley if I remind people of that, won't I? But it was a very good point from Letitia. This is a bit like the Oscars. And the winner is Steve Adelman. Is Steve still here? Steve, take a bow. Where is he? There he is. Look, he's being very modest. He won't stand up. No, don't clap, because we chose this. You might not like this. You might think this is rubbish. Steve's solution, we thought this really hit the answer about what it would take to go global. At least a very good idea about it. He says, those who truly collaborate, listening to and partnering with and learning from entities and individuals radically different from themselves are most likely to succeed on a global basis in a rapidly changing world. And we liked that multicultural diversity approach to this, the fact that it's very easy to sit here in Silicon Valley and see everything in one particular way. And what he was pointing out is that the world that we're dealing with, if we want to go global, whether it be from the UK, Europe, or America, is very different from this world and sees things in a very different way to the way we do. And we have to learn to see things through those eyes as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Sir Allan. Next, we've got Bob Richards from Moon Express. And to change the game, he's going to use the same soapbox.
I was on the wrong side of the fence, I guess. So yes, I'm Bob Richards. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Moon Express, also a founding trustee of Singularity University, and a long time ago, something called the International Space University. So I've been a true space cadet for all my life. And I posed the question that I ask myself every day, which in reading is probably, I realize, not a question that you guys get every day. The question was, how do we change the paradigm of space exploration in a way that allows the power of entrepreneurship and economic interest to build on the accomplishments of government space programs and open up new sources of energy and resources for a prosperous and unbounded future? Now, there's a big question. So, at Moon Express, we think about this every day. We're a company that's building a spacecraft just north of here in partnership with NASA that is going to radically reduce the cost of access to the moon. And for those of us who are orphans of Apollo, yesterday was the 50th anniversary of John F. Kennedy's famous riveting speech that set this nation on a course to reach the world next closest to us, our planetary neighbor. In a planetary archipelago, the moon, actually, we found in recent years, is completely full of resources where we thought in the Apollo era it was a dead, dry rock. We know that there's tremendous resources there. There are volatiles. There may be more platinum group metals than all the reserves of Earth. We choose to go to the moon, not because it's easy, but because it's profitable. And in asking that question, we've got a number of interesting responses. Many of them were in kind of the public relations and educational era, which is extremely important to us. Our challenge that we pose is called Fly Me to the Moon, M-E, Moon Express. We want to personalize why the moon is important to every one of us. It's so inbred into our cultures throughout millennia. It's really, really important to all of us. So we thought, well, what better way to fly me to the moon, or you to the moon, than to offer a prize from 23andMe, which can codify your genetic profile, and we will send the results of that, we promise, one day to the surface of the moon, where you will be archived forever for all your descendants and all the aliens that may find you in the future. Now, but what we were looking for is an answer that had to do with economics, that would help us create an economic dipole between the worlds that would create a sustainable adventure, not the private sector equivalent of flags and footprints like we were inspired to do as a government program back in the 60s. So the first prize that we thought most spoke to that economic interest came from none other than Lorna Ortiz of Shell. Is Lorna here? There she is, Lorna, thank you. And Lorna said, start looking at oil companies, go figure, as energy companies and establish non-traditional collaborations. Having support from major energy companies may help in planting the seeds of entrepreneurship. And we fully agree with that. And I'm going to take you up on that. So Lorna, please, a big round of applause for a great idea to build great economics to the moon.
Thank you, Bob. Next, we have J.J. Jungwirth for Mercedes-Benz.
Hello, everybody. I am Johan Jungwirth, or just JJ, my initials, heading our R&D office here in Palo Alto. We have about 250 engineers in the US working on the future of Mercedes-Benz, AMG, and smart cars. And of course, here in the Silicon Valley, we are working heavily with all the companies here, with Google, Apple, and Facebooks and Twitters and so on, and creating the next generation user experiences and user interaction for the vehicles. And the question we posed was, what is actually the next generation of user experience or advanced user interaction in the car, which could really have the biggest impact on your daily life? We received lots of ideas, actually more than 20 people submitted their ideas, and it was tough to choose a winner. As a team of 4, we were here today. We have chosen Sharon Hiremath. Sharon? Yes, congrats. And we just felt it's the most complete suggestion of a real user experience of the future, actually with gesture-based interactions, controlling your car, interacting with your environment, personalized content delivered to you, so personalization is a big topic and a trend, of course, as well. Local contextual information at your fingertips, as well as voice interactions. So with all of this, we really think you can create a great future interface and user experience in the car, and what we have shown here today already goes actually in that direction, and we are happy for the suggestion, and thank you for all the other ideas. We take them all into account, designing the next generation of our cars. Thank you.
Thank you, JJ. Our final poster booth report is from Hans Herenga of Shell Wind Energy.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. Perhaps the first thing to say is I'm actually not of Shell Wind Energy. I'm a member of the Game Changer team. It's always very confusing for people. Shell is a large organization, so just remember that I work for Shell, which I have done for the past 30 years, by the way. All right, how to get into this? We had an audience challenge question, and let me start with the first 4 words of it. It actually wasn't a challenge, it was a statement of truth. And if you take the statement of truth, which in a moment I will read to you, about half, if not 2/3 of the suggestions submitted could go straight into the bin. Which is an interesting observation to make, as a matter of fact, I think. And the statement of truth was, innovation is all about people. Now let me pause there for a moment, look around the room. Perhaps people can stop twittering. Maybe they even want to Twitter what I just said, so go Twitter, don't stop. Yeah? And let me repeat what I just said. Innovation is all about people. Okay. So the rest of the thing was around identification of, proper innovators and not simply people with only an idea. And the last part of the challenge was about, if you think about massive idea inflow, assuming they are not automatically generated by a computer, behind these ideas are people. And if you believe it's all about people, how do you pick out the innovators from those who only have an idea? Okay? Innovation is all about people. There are lots of people described in extreme detail process. Yeah? I don't know about you guys, but process and people, although it both starts with a P, don't really go hand in hand. Yeah? There are about 50 plus idea management packages on the market to deal with idea inflow. My suggestion to all of you, and I'm probably going to upset a few people in this room here, don't buy any of them. And the reason is we make a mistake. We think an idea is a project. And because we know how to do project management, we try to turn ideas into project management with dashboards and KPIs and approvals, and you know where this is going. I work for a large company, we're very good at that. Yeah? But ideas are not projects, ideas are ideas. And ideas are just an idea. It's an object with a certain set of characteristics, which maybe or maybe not, one day will actually turn into some sort of value. Okay? Right, so the runner-up of this challenge was somebody who apparently works or is the CEO or whatever, something called Aligned for Results, somebody called Randall Thomas. So Randall Thomas is the runner-up. Now, why Randall Thomas is the runner-up? Because he said something really new, at least if you work for a large corporation. You don't stick your idea in your idea management system and you don't tell anything about it. He said, circulate the ideas as widely as possible and enable them to snowball. Now, that's an interesting concept, snowballing ideas. If you want to solve real problems, you don't only need a single idea, you need a combination of ideas, and the combination of these ideas may actually solve the real big problem which you try to solve. It's not a single thing, it's not a project, it's the people behind it, and you see where this is going. So, but unfortunately, Randall is the runner-up, and there's actually one winner, and interesting enough, which I'll go into detail. The winner was always fixed up front. So, guys, I played a little game with you, and if you don't like that, that's how I am. And the winner is actually a startup company who is in the room, and invited by Shell. And what these people are doing are they're developing video games. And what they're going to do, they're developing video games to discover the behavioral pattern of effective innovators. Now that is interesting, because an idea, remember, is an object with characteristics, with people, and these people are going to make it or not. And you need to go back to the people and not to the idea. And they're going to have games to find these people. And if you can do that, and you can find these patterns, then you can discover innovation talent at web scale. And that is the real challenge. How can we tap in all these people and not in just a single few of them? So Guy, I don't know where you are. Here you go. Good luck with your company. And you were always the predetermined winner. Thank you.
Thank you, Hans. And thanks again to all the poster booth presenters. Thank you for all participating. It was a great experiment. And I think you got some great input from the audience of innovators.